Good evening, Carl Steinbeck here. Just want to cover today's Massachusetts versus Karen Reed jury trial. We had day 12 take place today, and it was really revealing again. We actually had this issue of the shoes John O'Keefe was wearing come up today, and it was really an explosive situation and revealing situation, and I'll get to that here in a minute. But we had Sergeant Buchanan with the Massachusetts State Police. He was on most of the day, and there was really some snafus as well that took a lot of downtime, and we'll get to that as well. So let me go ahead. Bring on stage here. So this is a guy, like I say, with Massachusetts State Police, and this is Proctor's supervisor at the time. So this is the introduction of a shoe that supposedly John O'Keefe was wearing. So let's see what this.
No objection.
With the court's permission, I'd ask the trooper to show the item to the jury.
Yes, go right ahead.
Well, that's the jeans he was wearing. John O'Keefe was wearing his jeans. See, they're all cut open from being at the hospital.
Thank you.
It looks like his back right pocket is ripped open, and it wasn't that way last time. So how did that tear get there? Unless they're holding it up when they're lifting up that side of it. It didn't look that way from last year's video.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Right then, the sergeant is going to get different gloves in.
During your conversations with the CERT team and other members of the team that a sneaker was found at 34 Fairview?
Yes, I did.
Have you seen the photographs relative to that sneaker?
But keep in mind, the CERT team got there in the afternoon on the 29th. So this was not found till the afternoon of the 29th, when it had already been snowing there for like over a foot and a half from the night before and morning before.
Sneaker?
Yes, I have.
And you mentioned when you were at the hospital, there was a sneaker? One?
Yes,
Do you have that sneaker with you?
I do.
Could you produce it, please?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd move this item into evidence.
No objection.
We go to move it into evidence. We haven't even seen it yet.
Could I have the court's permission for the
And
trooper to show it to the jury?
So now he gets fresh gloves on. That's a right foot shoe.
Trooper, is that the sneaker that was at the hospital when you visited Mr. O'Keefe?
No, sir.
Look at that. He asks, is that the one at the hospital? And Buchanan says, no, sir.
This is the sneaker from 34 Fairview.
And he's reading it off the evidence log, the paper bag there. That's what's written down on the paper bag. So, and Hank hadn't prepped with this witness over this. So this is what is represented to be something they found at Fairview. And we already saw the one from Fairview from that Connor Keefe, who testified, was it yesterday? And so he introduced what was supposed to be the left shoe that was found in the snow there on Fairview. Now we have a right shoe that's on the evidence bag. It says it's coming from Fairview also. So both shoes were left at Fairview. is what this testimony says right now.
Could I have that marked? What is that?
He's saying, could I have that marked? What is Hank referring to here? Have that marked? I mean, the bag says it came from Fairview. That's what they wrote on it. This is how botched of a case this is, that they can't even mark down something as easily put in a bag as a shoe.
Left or a right sneaker, sir?
This is the left sneaker. Excuse me, this is the right sneaker from,
He's like, oh no, what do we do? We got the wrong bag. This thing was not even marked properly. There's no chain of custody log on any of this stuff. And then they just mark it. Well, this is the shoe we found at the scene.
34 Fairview Road, Kansas.
Sure.
So somebody asked for a sidebar is what it sounded like there. And then the judges certainly wanting to fix this huge blunder.
If you could put the speaker back in the bag and let Mr. Brennan bring the bag over, please.
So they have a sidebar here. This is like dynamite explosion of a blunder here. When we were just talking about the shoe last night, and it looked like thanks to a lot of the evidence that was sent to me last night from the viewers of last night. Thank you much for that. It's clear that the shoes that he wore at the bar were white because he lifted his left foot when he's leaning on his right leg, and I'm talking about John O'Keefe. So it definitely was white at the McCarthy's. Both shoes, the bottoms were white. There was not that black sole underneath the white edging, and then we're seeing these shoes are white here, but look at them. They look very much brand new and clean. This one here is untied, and they probably maybe they untied it at the hospital, but the left one was untied. So they're not supposed to be messing with untying the shoe. And then you have what happened to the socks. We don't know where the socks are. And then the one at the scene, it looks like it's black. And the thing that really convinces me that it's black is that the undersole is black, and it's a different type of Nike shoe, very similar but different, and it has what looks like that black outermost sole. Is that the sole curves up like it does on a running shoe. So the photos we've seen of these, there's not a running shoe. It's more of a trainer type shoe. And so it's like the shoe there found at the 34 Fairview, not this one, which he's saying at 34 Fairview. But anyway, it's like, how do you screw this up so bad? So it's not, and it's not to say that even the police are the ones that got a shoe to replace the scene. Anything could have happened to explain how, or try to figure out how a different type of shoe was at 34 Fairview. We don't know how that would have happened. It's up to the government to prove that there is a proper chain of custody, and they can't even do a chain of custody with this. So, I mean, this is like so bad. You talk about something that can and should derail your prosecution. Defense is like, has so far been stipulating to so much that defense is, the defense is stipulating to almost everything the prosecution is trying to enter into evidence. Look at all those clips of Karen talking and any other kind of evidence. They're just stipulating to that. And that's what I think is a normal thing to do. When you got such bad chain of custody and you cannot prove through an evidence log how things were handled and passed through from the scene to back to a vehicle, back to the evidence room at the police department, and was it brought to the DA's office? I mean, there needs to be a registry of all that kind of stuff, and they just don't have it. So this is really a massive flaw and complete demonstration of incompetence, lack of diligence, dereliction of duty, gross dereliction of duty to have this botched of an investigation. I mean, it's really hardly an investigation at all that comports with traditional standards of crime scene processing. These guys are not crime scene processors. Why didn't they wait for the state crime scene folks. They should have just secured the scene and waited for that evidence team to show up and start doing their job. These guys are not experienced crime scene processors, and this is a murder case. They should only secure the scene and not mess with any of that. But here they are taking over and they call a CERT team. A CERT team is not a crime scene. They're just like a search and rescue. After this long sidebar.
You don't need to watch us over there following the thing, so we'll take a half an hour just to make sure that everybody is ready and is able to move forward smoothly. These things happen when you have a lot of evidence in the courtroom,
So right there, this is like unbelievable. This judge is basically covering for the prosecutor, telling the jury that, we need more time. We'll give you an extra half-hour morning break and then she's adding this, and which is fine, but then she's adding this part. Let me back it up here. She's like totally explaining to the jury. She's basically giving an instruction that this is not an issue. Having evidence misnamed, mismarked, no chain of custody. It doesn't matter. These.
Jurors will take our morning recess because you don't need to watch us over there following the thing, so we'll take a half an hour just to make sure that everybody is ready and is able to move forward smoothly. These things happen when you have a lot of evidence in the courtroom,
These things happen when you have a lot of evidence in the courtroom. So she's talking about, it seems like she's talking about this blunder with the evidence bag. I mean, how can a judge be doing this? This is so shocking, but yet it's not shocking because we're in this courtroom there. It's wow. This is like really, really, this judge sees how bad it is for the prosecution. It's like she's trying to throw him a lifeline. She should not comment on this at all. From any of the courts I've ever been in, I've never been to Massachusetts court, but for any of the courts that I've been in the United States, this is not normal for an American judge to comment on something like that when you have an evidence blunder as bad as this is, and then you're going to sit there and say that these things happen. Really, these things happen, or is it that common with these law enforcement officers up there in Massachusetts? Unbelievable. This is something that defense at the sidebar, where they moved for a motion to dismiss for this egregious mishandling of evidence. So anyway, let's
we will see you at 11.
All rise, please. Jurors, close your notebooks, follow me.
okay, then I'm going to jump ahead and let's see how they handle this. Wait, it's 1:45. Hold on.
Everybody is ready and is able to move forward smoothly. These things happen when you have a lot of evidence in the courtroom, so we will see you at 11.
All rise, please. Jurors, close your notebooks, follow me.
There's a part up in here.
Your Honor, Trooper Buchanan about this issue.
Listen to this here.
May I, during the break, in company of a representative from the defense team, speak to Trooper Buchanan about this issue?
I have no problem with that. Do you, Mr. Jackson?
No problem.
So Hank knows this is such a massive issue that he's asking the defense to come over here. We gotta try to smooth this out with you guys. We don't want you to raise in some kind of motion to, derail this prosecution train where this railroad job going on. So, and there he is collecting his tote of these paper bags that there's no chain of custody logs. They just start putting it, and keep in mind, these bags were not there at the scene either. So at some point on down in a date in the future from the date they collected this evidence, they wind up then marking it like they should have done from the first time they laid hands on this evidence. It's just unbelievable.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
All right.
I've never seen this big of a complete disaster mess of a prosecution team before. Yeah, Sherry D, you're saying most shocking part, all the people believe the Commonwealth's doing well, all the people believe Karen's getting a fair trial, all the people think Hank is winning out. Okay, well, they said that if you guys follow the Murdo case, people are saying how good Murdo's team was doing, all that kind of stuff. And as soon as I saw the Kennel tape, I'm like, well, what are these guys talking about? This case is like a dead ring loser. He's going down. So, in any event, I'm just looking for a few comments. Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, how do you describe this with proper terminology? It's not just redundant over and over again. Yeah, the bags are not resealed. They don't have new tape up there, and they're not strapping them tight. I mean, it's just a Barney Fife type operation. Yeah, tote of paper bags. Yeah, they've submitted one before Teresa, motion to dismiss. I don't know if they did one today, how they got stuff worked out, but all right, let's jump ahead here to after the break is over with, and we can see here how they address this issue. Go to 221.
Sir, when we left, we were discussing Mr. O'Keefe's sneaker that you retrieved from the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Yes, sir.
Would that be his right sneaker?
It would be his right sneaker.
Do you have that sneaker with you today?
I do.
And
Oh.
again, could you open that bag and show that right sneaker?
So look at Hank right away starts out leading and correcting him on this.
Would that be his right sneaker? Sir, when we left, we were discussing Mr. O'Keefe's sneaker that you retrieved from the Good Samaritan Hospital.
No, he said it came from 34 Fairview. So right there, Hank put a spin, and he's misrepresenting what this guy just testified to, right? So defense didn't object, but this that's a completely false statement. Hank wanted him to talk about the shoe from the hospital, but he said, according to the evidence bag, this came from 34 Fairview.
Yes, sir.
Would that be his right sneaker?
It would be his right sneaker.
There he is leading him all the way because he doesn't want this guy to screw up again.
Do you have that sneaker with you today?
I do.
And again,
So they just get a fresh start. They get to clean their whole mess up, start all over
could
again.
you open that bag and show that right sneaker to the jury?
Yes, sir.
Is that the sneaker you retrieved from the Good?
Look at how clean that sneaker is. Look at how clean that is. That looks like a brand new sneaker. You don't see any dirt on there at all. Any salt or debris from being on the side of the road there after the snowplow guy came by.
Samaritan Hospital?
It is.
I'd move that into evidence, please.
Okay, any objection, Mr. Jackson?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
I don't know what they're agreeing to that for, unless I guess they're going to argue that and show these points that I'm saying. And so that, in that sense, it helps them. That's the only thing I can think of. But it's quite a fiasco, evidence fiasco. This should really play into the theme for the rest of the trial for the defense and in their closing argument, that's for sure. The way they can't handle evidence properly. All right, then I'm going to jump ahead. We saw, why don't I go ahead and give you a quick summary of what happened for those of you that didn't watch. Before the sneaker issue came up, the sergeant talked about how he met Karen at her parents' house and she interviewed her briefly, and she said she dropped off John at 34 Fairview, didn't see him go in the house. They're saying there he didn't see him go in the house and left. Said he made a 3-point turn when she left. When asked about John's injuries, Karen said John bumped his head a few nights before and asked her about it. Seized Karen's phone pending a warrant, took the Lexus, followed it from Dighton to Canton. Says he set up crime scene tape to protect the vehicle. Neither he or Proctor ever touched the Lexus. But is he around Proctor 100% of the time? You know, that didn't come out on direct. And that's when the shoe thing came out. And he said he went to 34 Fairview for the first time on February 3rd around 9 o'clock. So I assume that would be in the morning. He was focused on searching the front lawn, found a straw in the street. He showed a photo of that. And then he showed John's hat found in the snow. So really, I mean, this is a cop, Boston cop living there. And as the snow is melting, he's not saying, hey, you guys might want to come by. So I think another thing that's suspicious about the Alberts, they're not even looking to see what's going on. And when they see evidence that's appearing in the melting snow, you think they'd just be curious to say, hey, what else is showing up here? And then he goes on to show pieces of plastic that are supposedly from the taillight. He also talked about how he was routinely driving by 34 Fairview to see if any more evidence was exposed from the melting snow. Then he says he found a large piece of taillight that had been uncovered, and he showed it to the jury. He also received the C.F. McCarthy waterfall and the ring from One Meadows. Also included on it, he was included on a text chain with Proctor and others at the time he received the text. So he said he's at the Logan Airport working a traffic detail. He said he gave a thumbs up to the message he saw on his Apple Watch. He said there was an investigation in the text chain and there was 2 sustained disciplinary findings against him. So this sergeant had it brought out that he was cited for 2 things. One was failure to adequately supervise, and that would be Proctor. And number 2, the inaccuracy of the review of quarterly performance evaluation. So that was, he didn't properly write up the review of how bad Proctor was when it came out, all that stuff he was saying about Karen Reed. And his punishment, you know what it was? It was only 5 vacation days, which, you know, he would just make that up with sick days. So really, he got no punishment whatsoever. He's still a sergeant. They read through some of the nasty Proctor texts, but not all of them. And it was really sort of like disjointed between him and Brendan again. Brendan was asking to read like the summary of the text, and it looked like they hadn't rehearsed this thing at all and prepared him, because he was not knowing which ones were coming from Proctor and which was coming from other people. So anyways, this is really a disjointed thing to see that. And then let's see. They played multiple uneventful earlier ring photos of John's driveway. There was no ring video of 12:36 when Karen connected to John's Wi-Fi. They played the ring video of Karen backing out of the driveway, though, at 5:07 a.m. on January 28th. They played the ring video of John's driveway at 5:46 a.m. with Karen, Carrie, and Jen. But then there's no ring video of those 3 leaving John's house. So they showed them showing up, but they didn't show them leaving. They also played the alarm.com video showing Karen's Lexus. She appeared to walk around the taillight with the driver, maybe her dad or brother, and stops there looking at it. And the Lexus is then loaded onto the tow truck. We saw video of McCarthy's. They had different clips showing alcohol consumption, and then they had the waterfall video where John comes in, hugs, and they showed John with a cocktail glass with a black straw. And then on Cross with Jackson, we're going to get to that then now. there was a lot of semantics in this cross-examination where the sergeant just didn't want to admit to things that were obvious. So let me get ahead to 533. Oh, I'm at the wrong hour here, so hold on.
Meadows Ave.
Thank you. I move this as evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I have no further questions.
Okay,
Exhibit 139.
thank you. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Sergeant Buchnick.
Good afternoon, sir.
Says his name wrong. I don't know
I
why.
want to talk to you for a second about roles in this case, in this investigation. Would you agree with me that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator as well as the case agent in charge of this case?
He was assigned as the case officer for the case.
In that position, given the fact that it was his assignment, would you agree with me that he had a leadership role insofar as the investigation of the case was concerned?
I wouldn't call it a leadership role. It's more of a facilitator, liaison between the DA's.
I would just say, okay, I don't care about what you call it. What does the Massachusetts State Police call it? All right, so we just go round and round with this thing. Watch this happen.
Personnel within the office and the state police. He also helps facilitate any missions, outstanding tasks that need to be completed.
He obviously had a supervisor, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
He obviously had a supervisor, correct?
He did, yes, that would be myself.
That would be you.
Yes.
Every case has some lead trooper in your unit, correct? Every case is assigned to someone to sort of be in charge and lead the charge of the investigation. Is that right?
Every case has a case officer that manages the investigation.
Right. And
So he's like trying to downplay what a lead officer is. There's a point man to handle the investigation. There's not 5 different point persons to handle investigation. There's one lead, right? So he doesn't want to use that word lead at all. He's completely trying to backtrack off that.
managing the investigation doesn't mean just, sort of typing up schedules. It means actually managing the investigation, like deciding what search warrants are going to be written in certain circumstances. That's one example, correct?
They're responsible for writing and authoring those search warrants. Sometimes the recommendation, suggestion, or leadership comes from the supervisors or the DA staff, where their experience might dictate otherwise.
And sometimes it comes from the lead case agent himself or herself, correct?
At times, yes.
Every team, even back when you were in the military, you were on many, many teams in the Marine Corps, correct?
I'm sorry, you were speaking, facing away from me. I couldn't hear you.
Every team, including back in the time you were in the military, back in the time you were in the Marine Corps, every team has multiple individuals involved in that team, correct? That's the whole point of a team, multiple people, correct?
I would agree with you that a team consists of more than one person.
And there has to be some sort of echelon of leadership on that team, correct? Everybody's not just an equal, co-equal, correct?
Yeah, Hank does so much leading, especially on redirect. I would try to block that if I was on this case here in Texas.
We might have different duties, responsibilities, but some teams have equal rank. Yeah.
But there's going to be a team leader, right? That's a military phrase, team leader.
Yes, there is a team leader in the Marine Corps, in the rifle platoon, but not every team has a leader.
Did the team in this case, in this investigation, have a leader? Someone who was assigned as the lead case agent, not just another officer, not just another detective, but the lead case agent.
The case officer for the investigation was Michael Proctor.
But you don't want to say lead case agent or case officer, correct?
I refer to that billet as case officer.
Your responsibility as the supervisor over this particular case officer or any other case officer that you might have, or any other trooper that you might have under your supervision, your responsibility in no small part is to supervise the individuals under your command to ensure that the case is adequately investigated. It's properly investigated. That's part of your role as a supervisor, correct?
Is one of my many responsibilities, yes.
It's partly because you have more experience, I'm guessing, than the people under your charge. Is that right?
Certainly in my position, but there are many instances where a sergeant might have less experience than a well-seasoned trooper that's been in the office for 15 to 20 years. So
fair enough. Fair enough. That may be the case, but under ordinary circumstances, you earn your way into a supervisory role in the Massachusetts State Police through both not just time, but time and experience, correct?
We take an exam and then get promoted based on the exam.
Part of the responsibility that you have as a supervisor is to make sure that the case is properly investigated, and that may include making sure you have the right suspects, right? The array of suspects that may exist, you want to make sure, and you supervise to make sure that that array of suspects is appropriate and proper, correct?
In every investigation, we follow the evidence. We follow the statements provided by eyewitnesses, witnesses in the case. Sometimes the defendants or suspects provide statements to us. At many instances, those could be contradictory statements. We follow the evidence in every investigation, and that evidence determines who the suspect, person of interest, or ultimately the defendant is.
And you want to make sure that you gather, or that your subordinates gather, that evidence in an appropriate and objective way. It's obviously the foundation of a good investigation, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Maybe. You obviously, as a supervisor, want to make sure, you talked about following the evidence, you want to make sure that that evidence is gathered in a way that is adequate, in a way that is objective, that in a way that is unbiased, so that you can gather the evidence that will lead you to the right folks, right? The right suspects.
We always want to gather as much evidence as possible. We conduct that gathering in the most appropriate ways possible. Sometimes there are tough decisions that have to be made where we have to either decide whether we're collecting evidence A or evidence B, and those decisions have to be made on the spot. At times it's a time-sensitive matter. Yeah. At times it's a decision made by a group putting their heads together and deciding on that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the most.
I think on the sidebar, maybe that was when they did the motion to dismiss verbally. So I don't know why they wouldn't do a motion to dismiss if they botched it up that much. And I think the judge, she's not going to dismiss anything, no matter how bad the prosecution's case gets, no matter how bad they bumble through the evidence and just trample all over everything. Because like I say, this Constitution is just a little thing that's a little gnat. It gets in the way here of the prosecution. They're not going to let it stop them from railroading Karen and her rights.
Let's try it again.
Accurate explanation.
Okay. You done?
I am.
Okay. Let's try that again. You want to make sure that the evidence, as a supervisor, supervising your subordinates, you want to make sure that the evidence is gathered in an appropriate way, in an objective way, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You're also doing everything you can as a supervisor and someone with the experience to make sure that the highest levels of integrity and those demands are met in any investigation that you work on.
If there was a question of integrity, those individuals would not be part of an investigation.
Okay. But we know what happened with Proctor. So right there, he's set himself up. Madeline Wags, you're saying there's talk Proctor, Albert, Higgins, and Tully aren't being called by Commonwealth. I sort of mentioned briefly that last night. And the defense calls them. You heard that they're limited what they can ask. Can you explain why? That's what I was saying, is that the way Hank objects all the time, he's got so much damage with all these witnesses. He knows the defense is going to call him, so he figures he can just keep objecting and say, well, Your Honor, nobody said John ever came into the house. So these are just superfluous extra witnesses. It's just, it's basically cumulative evidence, which means you're hearing the same thing over and over again. So that John was in the house. So judges could limit somebody for just, 2 witnesses or 3 at most. And so that's what I think could be the intent of him. So if he doesn't call Proctor, I mean, that'd be probably world's first murder case where you don't call the lead detective, and you're the prosecutor doing that kind of decision. I mean, you got a bad case when you're doing that, and you also don't call the medical examiner. That just reeks of a horrendous bad case for the government.
That includes knowing, obviously, what your subordinates are doing.
During the conduct of the investigation, during the process of us investigating a crime, yes, we know what is going on, because every bit of information that comes in needs to be shared, and we need to make sure the whole team is aware of all the evidence and information that is available to us at the time.
You want to make sure that, I'm going to use a colloquial phrase, you keep tabs on those who are reporting to you, correct? What are they doing? What are they engaged in? When are they coming and going? Who are they interviewing? Things of that nature. Basic investigative things, correct?
For the most part, you can't track every single person all the time, but this is a very serious line of work. A lot depends on it. We speak for those that can no longer speak for themselves. So we do our best to conduct every investigation with integrity, honor, and get to the truth.
If you don't properly supervise, and I'm talking about your role now as a supervisor, if you don't properly engage in that supervision, it obviously increases chances for mistakes. It increases chances for bias to seep in. It increases chances that something could affect the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
That's a lot there. Can you repeat that, please? Maybe one section at a time?
Sure. If you don't properly supervise your subordinates in an investigation, failing to properly supervise them could increase the chances that mistakes are made. Isn't that right? That's why
Yes, that is one possibility.
They can ask for like a directed verdict after the government rests. However, with this judge, it's not going to matter.
But yes.
Okay, let's break it down. It also increases chances that there could be inherent biases that are seeping into the case that you want to make sure doesn't happen, correct?
I believe that human beings all have biases, but during the investigation, those biases do not affect, especially in this case, they did not affect any outcome of the investigation.
So I wasn't even talking about this case. I was talking about cases in general and your supervisory role in general. Your job as a supervisor is to seek out and make sure that there are no biases in an investigation, correct?
Absolutely.
You want to make sure that any investigation, as a supervisor, any investigation that is under your charge, under your supervision, is done adequately and professionally. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
And there is a chain of command for that, right? Meaning someone under your charge needs to report up the chain of command to you, and you have supervisors to whom you report, correct?
Yes, it's a paramilitary structure. And
so we're about 10 minutes in, and we're still trying to talk about roles, and he's trying to get him to admit that Proctor has a lead role in this case. And this guy will not admit to that. Even the disciplinary report from the state police headquarters, that they're the ones that this board that fired Trooper Proctor, they even said he was the lead investigator on this case. So this guy isn't even referring to him as a lead investigator when yet the state police headquarters did. So I'm not sure why defense didn't bring that out.
it is in order for the colonel to keep command and control over the entire agency of 2,000 plus people, it is absolutely necessary for there be a reporting up and down within the ranks of the Massachusetts State Police.
And you have, by the way, what's your chain of command? Who did you report to back in 2022?
I directly reported to Detective Lieutenant Tully.
Especially you mentioned this case a second ago, especially in a case like this, a homicide investigation, especially in a homicide investigation involving a police officer, you have to maintain your knowledge, an intimate knowledge of those under your command, under your charge, to ensure that what they're doing fits what you believe to be the proper protocol. In other words, you're not just going to let people loose. You're going to watch what they're doing and actually supervise them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We are professionals, and we conduct each and every investigation with that in mind, and with the integrity that is necessary.
You just used the word I was about to use. That ensures the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
Yes.
To use your word, that ensures the integrity of the investigation. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
As you sit here today, do you believe that this investigation, now I'm going to turn to this investigation, was conducted with professionalism, with competence, at the highest level of integrity?
This investigation was conducted professionally, with integrity, and all the evidence collected, all the statements collected pointed in one direction. There was no bias influence on the evidence, on the information that was collected, or which direction the investigation pointed naturally.
Former Trooper Michael Proctor was the person who was the assigned case agent, the lead case agent in this particular investigation, correct?
Michael Proctor was the case officer for this investigation.
He was assigned, ultimately, to use another phrase, as the lead investigator, wasn't he?
I'm not going to agree with you.
Is there a reason that you want to try to distance yourself from naming Michael Proctor as the lead investigator in the case? Is there some reason?
I am not trying to distance myself. All I'm saying is the term that I use is the case officer. We're simply case managers. There's no leading investigation in any direction.
So in your mind, well, let me ask you this. He's a case officer, another word for that, synonym would be an investigator, right? He's a detective, an investigator, right?
He is a detective, yes.
And he was the one who was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police because of his on-call status that night, or that morning, January 29th, 2022, he was assigned to the case, correct?
Michael,
Yes or no? Assigned to the case. That's all I'm asking.
well, you said a lot before that.
No, I said he was assigned to the case. What I said before that was January 29th, 2022. He was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police as the case officer.
I wish he was stand near the mic. He's not as loud and clear as we need him to be. I'm talking about Jackson here.
For this case, right?
No.
Who was?
He was assigned to be on call a month prior. Just because he was on call, he was assigned the case as a result. He was not assigned the case right there and then, because his assignment began much earlier in the day.
Sergeant, we can do this all day, I suppose. He was on call.
He was.
January 29th, correct?
He was.
Because he was on call, any case that happened to come in would be assigned to whom?
To the on-call trooper that's on the schedule.
Which was whom?
It was Michael Proctor.
Let me just ask you this. Do you believe that Michael Proctor, his involvement in this case, taints the investigation? Tainted the investigation?
No.
Not at all.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor?
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Sure is. Everything I say is question. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant? Okay.
Sustained to the comment. Go ahead and ask it again, Mr.
I'll ask you
Jackson.
again. You said honor and integrity. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor? Okay.
You see that, folks? That's how the prosecutor's hiding the truth. He just talked about honor and integrity of this investigation, and we know the horrendous things that Trooper Proctor did on this case and the comments he made about Karen in text messages, and the prosecutor wants to keep that out. So he wants to prop this up as like a totally neutral, unbiased case full of integrity and honor. The best of the best was done on this case to ensure that the defense, the defendant, the accused, the suspect is afforded all their rights. I mean, it's just all garbage. And this is another example. I hope the jury picks up on this, and that this is over and over and over again how the prosecutor is trying to hide the truth, because that's the only way they can win on this ash and trash case.
I'll allow it.
The investigation was conducted with honor
Good. Finally, the judge is doing something that she should be ruling on the right way.
and integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction and one direction only.
So, Sergeant Buchanan, you don't want to answer my question.
Sorry, Climb sleuthing. I'm just trying to get through this, and I tell folks for super chats, I don't need your money. If you just want to go ahead and donate to the Karen Reed fund site, and we'll handle it that way. But if you want to shoot me your question again, I'll look for it.
Correct?
I will answer your question. Absolutely.
Do you think this case was handled with honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant?
The investigation was handled with integrity by Michael Proctor.
Wow. That's like unbelievable that he would say that. So maybe the next question be like, so you guys are on the same level of integrity and honor in how you conducted this investigation. Pull him back into the cesspool that Proctor is fired. So this guy got fired, and he said for his conduct on this case, and he's saying that he conducted himself with honor and integrity. I mean, really, that's how much these guys will just fling stuff at the jury and just expect them to believe this garbage.
You do know that he touched or had input in nearly every part of this case, obviously, as the case officer, correct?
He managed the case.
So he had some input or had some connection to nearly every part of the case, be it the physical evidence, the search warrants, the interviews, things of that nature.
He was one of the involved with collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and signing affidavits for the search warrants.
He didn't take a minor role in this case. He had a major role in this case. Would you at least agree with that?
He had a role that was more significant than others. A major role would, to me, suggest that he had 51% or more. And with a team of the size that we had working on this case, he did not have a major role.
So you believe, as you sit here today, your testimony is Michael Proctor did not have a major role in this investigation of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed because he didn't have 51% of something? That's your testimony?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Okay. You're aware of the search warrants that were drafted, affidavits that were attendant to those search warrants in this case, correct?
Am I aware of affidavits drafted
Search warrants and affidavits,
in support of the search warrants?
correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. You're also aware that there was a good amount of physical evidence that was handled in this case? Recovered, touched, booked, assigned or booked into the lab, things of that nature?
I am aware of the evidence involved in this case, yes.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
He's just so smug. Comes across like he just doesn't care. He just got these canned answers.
Sergeant Buchanan, I've
it's not
handed
true.
you a
How can you say this officer's not being dishonest here? How can you say he's honest when he says that Proctor, the guy that got fired for the way he was biased against Karen Reed, and that bias was so bad it got him fired? You know how bad your conduct has to be to get fired as a state employee? And that's how bad it was. He got fired. And this guy's going to say like he was full of honor and integrity. So this, I think, is like one of the best moments of the day for the defense right there, because you can just set them up big time throughout the rest of the questioning.
binder, and it's tabbed just for your convenience, so I don't have to walk back and forth. With
Thanks,
the court's
sir.
permission,
Yes.
can you open tab 1? I'm not.
Okay. I see the question because it disappeared from the screen here. Question from Crime Sleuthen. You're saying the first trial, shirt and hoodie were in bags 437 and 438, signed by Proctor. Defense proved hoodie was moved from 437 to 438. Commonwealth got rid of the bags and put them in glass. The bags are gone. Corruption. Yeah, it's like, who do they think they are? They can just sit there and start moving stuff around, moving out of the evidence bag, put them into glass panes like picture frames to hang on the wall. This is just like, they have no idea what they're doing. Unbelievable that that's what you see behind him there, that plexiglass or glass, whatever it is. They have some of his clothing mounted on that. I mean, how bizarre is that?
I'm not going to ask you to read the entire search warrant, but is that a search warrant that ends in 07?
Yes, it is.
And it's for generally.
At that point, been discharged from the hospital, and then Mr. O'Keefe was still in the emergency room and available for us to view.
At that point, you said the defendant had been discharged. She was not the defendant at that point.
No, she was not. No.
Did you have a chance to enter a room or actually see Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, I did.
I don't know what
Had he
happened.
passed at that time?
Yes, he has.
When you walk in the room, what do you see?
When I walked into the room, I saw
I think around 5:40.
That you want to make sure doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of a team. Did you report to back in 2022?
I directly reported to Detective Lieutenant Tully.
Especially in a case, you mentioned this case a second ago, especially in a case like this, a homicide investigation, especially in a homicide investigation involving a police officer, you have to maintain your knowledge, an intimate knowledge of those under your command, under your charge, to ensure that what they're doing fits what you believe to be the proper protocol. In other words, you're not just going to let people loose. You're going to watch what they're doing and actually supervise them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We are professionals, and we conduct each and every investigation with that in mind, and with the integrity that is necessary.
You just used the word I was about to use. That ensures the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
Yes.
To use your
Okay, Iris, if you're saying that's legitimate inquiry, this audit, as we heard from somebody that wanted to bid on it, said it was basically nothing but a rubber stamp. So that wasn't an independent audit of any kind. They didn't go in the deep dive details of this case. And secondly, a lot of it, they could not certainly rule out or rule in certain aspects of this because they don't have the kind of details, granular details you would need to figure that stuff out. So this whole thing was just nothing but a PR stunt.
Word, that ensures the integrity of the investigation. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
As you sit here today, do you believe that this investigation, now I'm going to turn to this investigation, was conducted with professionalism, with competence, at the highest level of integrity?
This investigation was conducted professionally with integrity, and all the evidence collected, all the statements collected pointed in one direction. There was no bias influence on the evidence, on the information that was collected, or which direction the investigation pointed naturally.
Former Trooper Michael Proctor was the person who's the assigned case agent, the lead case agent in this particular investigation, correct?
Michael Proctor was the case officer for this investigation.
He was assigned, ultimately, to use another phrase, as the lead investigator, wasn't he?
I'm not going to agree with you.
Is there a reason that you want to try to distance yourself from naming Michael Proctor as the lead investigator in the case? Is there some reason?
I am not trying to distance myself. All I'm saying is the term that I use is the case officer. We're simply case managers. There's no leading investigation in any direction.
So in your mind, well, let me ask you this. He's a case officer, another word for that, synonym would be an investigator, right? He's a detective, an investigator, right?
He is a detective, yes.
And he was the one who was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police because of his on-call status that night, or that morning, January 29th, 2022. He was assigned to the case, correct?
Michael,
Yes or no? Assigned to the case. That's all I'm asking.
well, you said a lot before that. So
I said he was assigned to the case. What I said before that was January 29th, 2022. He was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police as the case officer for this case. Correct?
no,
Who was?
he was assigned to be on call a month prior. Just because he was on call, he was assigned the case as a result. He was not assigned the case right there and then, because his assignment began much earlier in the day.
Sorry, we can do this all day, I suppose.
Yeah, you can do it all day.
He was.
Correct?
He was.
Because he was on call.
So we had the state police headquarters that fired him call him lead investigator on this case. Somebody has pointed out that Morrissey, in his bizarre statement, public statement, called him the lead sergeant or detective on the case too. I don't recall that, but if that's the case, and so that's another data point as well that this guy will not admit to.
Any case that happened to come in would be assigned to whom?
To the on-call trooper that's on the schedule.
Which was whom?
It was Michael Proctor.
Yes.
Let me just ask you this. Do you believe that Michael Proctor, his involvement in this case, taints the investigation? Tainted the investigation?
No.
Not at all.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor?
Look at him. Are we here?
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Sure is. Everything I say is a question.
Right on, I'm back.
Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant?
Sustain to the comment. Go ahead and ask it again, Mr.
I'll ask you
President.
again. You said honor and integrity. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor?
I'll allow it.
The investigation was conducted with honor and integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction and one direction only.
So, Sergeant Buchanan, you don't want to answer my question. Correct?
I will answer your question, absolutely.
Do you think this case was handled with honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant?
The investigation was handled with integrity by Michael Proctor.
You do know that he touched or had input in nearly every part of this case, obviously, as the case officer, correct?
He managed the case.
So he had some input or had some connection to nearly every part of the case, be it the physical evidence, the search warrants, the interviews, things of that nature.
He was one of the involved with collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and signing affidavits.
You know, this helps him sort of set this up. Or no, Proctor had such a limited role that's why he doesn't need to be called. We don't need to call. He's not the lead detective that we aren't calling for this case. So I think this is all part of the scam to downplay his role, so they have some top cover to argue that it wasn't necessary to call him. He played such a minor role. No, it's not
For the search
true.
warrants.
He didn't take a minor role in this case. He had a major role in this case. Would you at least agree with that?
He had a role that was more significant than others. A major role would, to me, suggest that he had 51% or more. And with a team of the size that we had working on this case, he did not have a major role.
So you believe, as you sit here today, your testimony is Michael Proctor did not have a major role in this investigation of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed because he didn't have 51% of something? That's your testimony?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Okay. You're aware of the search warrants that were drafted, affidavits that were attendant to those search warrants
Yeah, I just said that
in this
was
case, correct?
downplaying.
Am I aware of affidavits drafted
Search warrants and affidavits,
in support of the search warrants?
correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. You're also aware that there was a good amount of physical evidence that was handled in this case, recovered, touched, booked, assigned or booked into the lab, things of that nature?
I am aware of the evidence involved in this case, yes.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Sergeant Buchanan, I've handed you a binder, and it's tabbed just for your convenience, so I don't have to walk back and forth. With
Thanks,
the court's
sir.
permission,
Yes.
can you open tab 1? I'm not going to ask you to read the entire search warrant, but is that a search warrant that ends in 07?
Yes, it is.
And it's for generally Verizon records for Miss Reed's cell phone.
No, I would not agree with you, sir.
What is that search warrant for?
It's for Verizon records for a VIN number, which looks like a vehicle.
Is that the vehicle, the SUV, the Lexus SUV in this case?
I do not know for sure because it doesn't have that identifier here, and I don't know the VIN number off the top of my head.
Okay, fair enough. Who's the affiant?
Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab 2? Is that a search warrant ending in the number 14?
Give me one second.
So-
I don't want to ruin.
He has to go item by item. So in this case, it's actually good that he's not admitting that he had a significant role in the investigation of the case, because he's just now having to go through all the documents that were processed and created by Proctor.
Your presentation here.
Search warrant ending in 13. I misspoke.
Okay.
Is that a search warrant for, generally speaking, Karen Reed's cell phone?
The quality of this photocopy is so poor, I cannot make out exactly what it's for, but there is an overlay of print. I can read what is presented to me, if that's what you want me to do. I do not know if this is an authentic copy of a search warrant.
Let's just look at the affidavit. Can you tell me who the affiant is?
On this document, the affiant is Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab? By the way, just staying with that for a second, you said you don't recognize it. Do you recognize it as being attendant to this case?
The application or the affidavit?
The search warrant. Well,
Yeah,
they go together.
The application or the together?
They go together.
I understand that, but I'm asking which document you want me to.
The document in total. In other words, it's not a search warrant dealing with a different case. It's dealing with Ms. Reed's case, correct?
Again, I cannot say from the search warrant because of the quality of it. The addendum A appears to be with this case.
Okay. Have you ever
And
seen
the
it before?
I'm sorry.
Have you ever seen it before, this search warrant?
I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't testify to that.
So this could be a search warrant that you never even saw?
Based on what you're presenting to me, never having seen or not having read all the details of it, I cannot say whether I've seen it before or not.
So you're not sure that Michael Proctor didn't just do the search warrant without your knowledge? As you sit here.
I don't know if this is truly Michael Proctor's
Think
product.
think that might be a forgery? His
I'm
name?
sorry?
You think that might be a forgery at the end of that affidavit?
That's a good one.
Well, for one, it's not signed. So I don't know who produced this. What I'm saying to you is I don't know who produced this. The quality of the first document, the name.
How would defense have an unsigned affidavit for a warrant? How is that even possible? They're getting them like draft copies that they had in their file.
Narrative. I don't know who produced it. If you show me a search warrant application with an affidavit from court with a stamp, the timestamp and the stamp water seal from court, I will tell you that
This
that's what it appears to be.
cross-examination by
What you've shown
Alan
me here,
Jackson.
I don't know what this is.
Otherwise, looking at that document, seeing the affidavit, seeing the addendum, seeing Michael Proctor's name on it, no clue whether or not that's a warrant that's attendant to this case that Michael Proctor drafted and submitted. You have no clue.
I can't take you at your word.
I'm not asking you to take me at my word, sir. I'm not testifying. I'm asking you to take the document at his word. Do you recognize it or not? If you don't, you don't.
I do not know.
Okay, let's turn to tab 3. Does that appear to be a search warrant ending in the number 14?
Yes, it is.
And does that appear to generally be associated with Ring camera footage at One Meadows? Or can you not tell that?
It has an email address, an associated MAC address. So yes, that's what it appears to be.
Okay, can you tell me who the applicant is?
Again, this is not a signed search warrant. This is just an affidavit.
Whose name is at the bottom of it?
The name at the bottom printed is Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab 4? Does that appear to be a search warrant ending in the number 04?
Yes, it does.
And does that appear to be for Ring footage also at One Meadows in 2023?
Based on the application addendum A, it's the same email address associated with the previous.
Yeah, I mean, prosecutors, they bring in witnesses all the time that aren't straight up and telling the truth. I mean, you see it all the time, all the time. And look how many lies have been told in this courtroom so far. It's a courtroom full of lies so far by the prosecution witness. So that's what happens. And prosecutors know these witnesses are doing this. They know that. But they need to win the case.
Location of Meadows, yes.
Who's the affiant or affiant?
Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab 5? Does that appear to be a police report?
It does.
And do you see a reference in that police report for a search warrant ending in 10 for a telematic system regarding Miss Reed's SUV? And it may speed things up if you look at page 2.
There is a reference to it, yes.
Okay. Whose report is that?
It's Trooper Nicholas Garino's report.
And who is referred to on page 2 as seeking the search warrant ending in 10?
For Paul, we're not going to see him.
That search warrant was issued at Stone District Court and presented by Trooper Proctor.
Turn to page, tab 6, if you wouldn't mind.
Iris, I see you're anti-Karen. You're saying Yannetti's public statement called it a tragic accident. He said the same during her bail hearing. How did it change over a year later to a conspiracy? Well, it's very simple. I guess you don't know enough of the details of this case because it was put out publicly and leaked that there was a actual ring video showing how Karen had hit John, and so she was under the impression that's what happened. Obviously, telling her lawyer what she knew, which was really probably next to little and nothing, because she was under the influence of alcohol. So she just was led to believe, also by Jen, that she was the one behind it. So it was just a combination of things that she was set up on, and that's why why that came out. So,
Do you see a search warrant ending in the number 77?
I see the application, yes.
And this deals with Google.
happens a lot. That's why innocent people can easily be convicted.
Some geofence data, correct?
Yes, it is.
Who's the affiant?
Again, this search warrant is not signed, so, but I would say this isn't an actual search warrant, but it seems like at the bottom it says Trooper Michael Proctor.
If you turn to tab 7, please. Does that appear to be a report authored by Nicholas Garino?
It does.
Does that deal with John O'Keefe's cell phone?
It's a report written by Nicholas Garino referencing Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone, yes.
And it indicates that Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone was seized by a particular trooper?
That's what the report indicates, yes.
Who's the trooper?
In this report, it says that Trooper Proctor secured the cell phone.
Turn to tab 8, if you don't mind. Do you see a similar report by Trooper Garino?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this really is like Jen McCabe. Just don't admit to anything. Be forced to. Oops, here's what's going on. My phone is on the computer keyboard here. Don't admit to anything. Just deflect left and right. Make them try to pin you down, and then don't just still stay stuck on your answer, which is absolutely ludicrous.
And do you see reference to Karen, pardon me, Karen Reed's cell phone having been seized?
Yep, another way of saying it.
Yes.
And that was seized by Trooper Proctor also, correct?
Yeah, him and I were there together.
His name is in the report, though.
Yes, his name is in the report.
Your name is not in the report, is it?
I'll have to check in a second, please.
Yeah, I made some X tweet. I think it was yesterday. It's like 10 days of testimony, and the jury, world's first murder case where they have not shown any autopsy photos. It's that bad of a case. They try to run from that, and they'd rather show stuff to the jury to try to get the jury to dislike Karen by showing these little snippets of video clips. This case is so bizarre. I mean, it's just really, really so obvious to me as a trial attorney that the prosecution really knows that they have a loser case, and that's why they're trying to do all these tactics that are just trying to basically, it's like a psyops, psychological operation on the jury.
My initials are in the report.
Turn to tab 9. Do you see a report by you
I do.
indicating early spring 2022? There's a CPD video requested by somebody, correct?
Yes.
Who did you indicate requested that CPD video?
The case officer, Trooper Proctor.
And you went and actually, in this instance, you actually went and got the video and delivered it to him, correct? At his request.
Yes, as the case officer, I would, yeah.
Because as the case officer, he's entitled to ask for things, have them delivered, correct?
Anybody's entitled to ask for things. Absolutely. We are pursuing justice. We're looking for any and all possible evidence.
I'm sure you are. As the case officer,
Right.
He's entitled to ask for things to be delivered to him,
Yes.
even by his supervisor.
Yes, absolutely.
If you don't mind turning to tab 10, please. Do you recognize that report?
I'm sorry, I was still turning.
So all these reports done by Proctor, and this guy says he didn't have even a 51% role in this investigation.
It's the same report.
Same report, different paragraph, also talking about, or the different sentence, talking about a July 2023 CPD or Canton Police Department video that was also requested, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. That particular part of the report, where I'm directing your attention to July of 2023, there was a Canton Police Department video requested by someone, correct?
Yes.
Who was that requested?
So the good thing about the defense here is that they came prepared to show the role he had. So if the prosecution was smarter, they would have just acknowledged, yeah, he had a big role in the case, but there was always somebody else there. There was not an ability for him to influence any testimony. And I supervised everything he did in terms of like the evidence gathering part of it. So they could do something like that, but they doubled down on this ridiculous idea that he had such a low involvement on this case. And so defense was totally prepared, and they're going to make him walk through all this. It's really insulting the jury's intelligence for them to see all this. And I think he's not coming across well at all. They can see the same kind of stuff that we're seeing right here. So this is another thing that whatever mileage they thought they got out of him, aside from that massive evidence blunder regarding the shoes today, he's just continually digging a home for himself here. It looks absolutely terrible as a witness.
Requested by?
Trooper Proctor.
And who delivered it to Trooper Proctor?
I did.
Turn to tab 11, please. Do you see a document referencing the analysis of Canton Town Library videos?
I do.
And who is it that's listed as having received and reviewed and analyzed the town library videos?
Give me just 1 second. I have to read the report.
Yeah, see, the other thing is Hank's trying to get away from the lead investigator being called at all, let alone he should have been called by now. So it's all just smoke and mirrors by the prosecutor. Whoops. Yeah, I don't know why the defense. Sorry, I disappeared there and I lost my place again. Stand by. Sorry about that. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Look at him staring at that. Just dragging this out. Doesn't want to admit the obvious.
It was Trooper Proctor that analyzed the video and wrote up the timeline.
Thank you. Sergeant, if you'll turn to tab 12. Do you recognize that as being a November 2023 report?
Yes, it's report number 83.
And who authored that report?
All right, I'm going to jump ahead here. There's a break. Let's go back here.
All right, so Sergeant, I'm going to ask you to do your best to answer the question that's asked.
Yes, Your Honor.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Did you contact the medical examiner's office in the morning of January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
And did you state to them that there was a possibility that the decedent, John O'Keefe, was struck in the face with a cocktail glass?
I don't recall my words exactly, but that sounds accurate to what I might have said.
at least your initial investigation during those early morning hours, those critical hours, led you to believe at least that there was a possibility that there was a physical altercation, correct?
Yes.
What steps did you take at that moment to determine whether or not anybody in the house may have been involved in that physical altercation that you thought was a possibility?
That's a compound question. I have to answer it separately.
Answer it however you want to. It's an open-ended question, which is unlike me. What steps did you take to, at that moment, to determine whether or not anybody in the house could have been involved in that possible physical altercation that you just described?
We interviewed the homeowner and 2 witnesses that were in that house.
You never went into the house, did you? On January 29th, at least.
I personally did not go in the house.
You did not secure that house or remove the occupants, did you?
Which day?
January 29th. I'm talking about the morning of January 29th.
I did not know.
You did not secure the yard as a crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
You didn't conduct any search of that house.
No, I did not.
You didn't take any photographs of the interior of that house.
I did not.
You didn't ask a forensic criminalist to join you and process the house, correct?
That is correct.
You didn't set up a crime scene log to determine who is coming in and going out of the potential crime scene.
I did not.
No one actually documented the crime scene by taking contextual photographs and then close-up photographs, etc., during those early morning hours, correct?
I cannot speak to that. I was not there.
So the answer is you didn't do that. And you didn't cause that to be done.
I did not do that.
Crime scene services section, what is that?
It's a unit, specialized unit on the state police. They are specially trained with documentation, photographs, video, latent fingerprints, foot and tire impressions, footwear and tire impressions. They assist other investigators in documenting and processing scenes.
Did you contact CSSS to process the house or the yard or the area adjacent to the yard?
Which house, sir?
34 Fairview, Sergeant Buchanan.
No, Proctor will testify. That's a given.
Do you think I was talking about a different house?
Yes, I did.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Let's stick with 34 Fairview, where John O'Keefe's body was found. Did you call CSSS out to the scene to process that house?
I did not contact crime scene services on January 29th to the area of 34 Fairview Road to the lawn where John O'Keefe's body was found.
You mentioned that you conducted
Unbelievable.
interviews that day, correct?
That's correct.
Where were those interviews conducted?
The first interview was conducted at Canton Police Department. The second, third, and fourth were conducted at a residence in Canton. The fifth,
what was the first interview at Canton Police Department that morning?
Sergeant Good.
So other than Sergeant Good, I'm talking about civilian witnesses. You mentioned 3 civilian witnesses. Where were those 3 witnesses interviewed?
At a residence in Canton.
But not at 34 Fairview, just to be clear.
They were not at 34 Fairview, no.
They had been at 34 Fairview, though, hadn't they? All 3 of them.
Yes, they had.
As a matter of fact, Michael Proctor spoke to one, at least one of them, while she was at 34 Fairview, correct?
I don't know.
Weren't you with Michael Proctor when he spoke to Jennifer McCabe?
Which time, sir?
The first time he called her to set up the interview that morning on January 29th.
I don't know where Jennifer McCabe was. I can't testify to that. I have no idea.
So if that call was made, she talked about that call being made, that was made by Michael Proctor, not by outside of your presence.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. If there was a call made to Jennifer McCabe by Michael Proctor that morning, that was outside your presence.
Not necessarily. I just did not know where she was.
So the only three people you interviewed were Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert, correct?
Not correct.
Who else?
The defendant.
Other than Miss Reed, and before you got to Miss Reed, because you didn't get to Miss Reed till 3:34, correct? In the afternoon.
In the afternoon, I don't know exactly what time we began the conversation.
I'm talking about in the morning when you were trying to figure out what was going on. You interviewed three people,
Yes, we did.
three civilians.
At one point, we interviewed three civilians, the homeowner at 34 Fairview Road, and two witnesses that were with Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant the night prior, and then one of the witnesses that was with the defendant when Mr. O'Keefe was discovered.
And these are individuals that you made the assessment had either been with or shortly been with at the time or shortly before he was last seen alive, right?
Based on the information that we had at that time, one of the individuals was with him right before he was seen alive, and the other
Right
two,
before he was last seen alive.
one of the individuals was with him right before he was last seen alive, and two of the individuals saw the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe together.
And those same two individuals were also with Mr. O'Keefe just minutes before he was last seen alive. The waterfall, correct?
All three of the individuals were with Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant at Waterfall, yes.
And all three of the individuals were also at 34 Fairview when Mr. O'Keefe arrived. You had that information, didn't you?
We did not have information of Mr. O'Keefe arriving at the house. He was dropped off on the lawn.
And all three people,
There you go again,
all
siren.
three, were either named McCabe.
More emergencies in that town than any in
Those
America.
are the three people that you had information from, correct?
Which information? We had information for a lot of different sources at that point in time.
I'm talking about the first three interviews that you did, the first three civilian interviews you did that morning. Still on the same thing. You mentioned talking to three people at a residence in Canton. Brian Albert, Jim McCabe, Matt McCabe. All three were at 34 Fairview when they indicated John O'Keefe arrived in an SUV. They all told you that, right?
They were inside the home when the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe arrived in the SUV.
These are the very people that would have a motive to lie if they were somehow involved, right?
Can you answer that?
Objection, please.
No, Your Honor.
You're a professional investigator, correct?
That's correct.
Homicide investigator, right?
That's correct.
Many years of experience, right? Is that yes?
I don't know what many means to you,
No,
but
of course not. How many years of experience do
Really?
you have?
in homicide,
Correct.
10 next week.
Okay. Does that sound like many?
I didn't answer the first time because I don't know what you would think many is.
Right.
Oh, please, really?
Suspects ever lied to you?
Yes.
Suspects lie to you all the time, don't they?
All the time is not accurate. They lie about certain things to create an alibi for themselves and state contradicting facts or fabricated stories.
And if someone
All the
has,
time would mean that they're constantly lying about everything.
do you understand the colloquialism all the time?
I
Suspects.
do not know the term colloquialism.
Okay, let's try it a different way.
Sorry, folks. I've had some computer problems here. Wow.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sorry about that. My mouse locked up for some reason. I'm trying to open an email that somebody sent me photographs. It's not cooperating.
I want to shift gears for a second, Sergeant Buchanan, and ask you about some of the physical evidence in the case. You and Mr. Proctor collected the gray sweatshirt and the orange T-shirt that we saw entered into evidence today, correct?
That's correct.
You talked about finding that evidence at Good Samaritan Hospital. Is that right?
That is where it was seized from, yes.
You described it as being on the floor, correct?
That's correct, yes.
They put his clothes on the floor in the DA's office on some large paper. Really, really absolutely terrible way to handle evidence. It's like you can't believe it that these are actually seasoned career police officers handling evidence this way. Unbelievable.
Where on the floor was it when you first saw it? So on the hospital floor, not the ambulance floor, correct?
When I first saw it, it was on the hospital floor, correct?
All right. Madam Coach.
Yes.
Take a look at that photograph, please.
Yes.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's one of the photographs taken from Mr. O'Keefe's emergency department room.
Do you recognize the shirt or shirts that you earlier described as being in that photograph?
There is an orange shirt depicted on the floor to the left side, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that be marked and entered into evidence.
No objection.
Okay.
While that's being marked, we approach very briefly.
Thanks for not hanging up on me when I did that botch. Locked up. All right, let's go ahead.
Your Honor, with permission, may I publish?
Yes.
Sergeant Buchanan, this is Exhibit 110. You just mentioned seeing an orange shirt. Do you have a laser pointer with you? If you don't, I can grab you one.
I do.
Can you point for the jurors where you were describing the orange? Just pick whichever TV you want to use. May I approach?
Yes.
You worked earlier. This is
It did, yes.
that's a beast. That should work. Just tell me which TV you're going to look at so the jurors understand and can follow.
I'll do the one to my right so the jurors can see. There is something orange right there on the floor.
Does that appear to be on top of something darker?
It does appear to be on top of possibly a darker item of clothing, possibly the jeans. I'm not sure exactly from here
Okay.
what that is.
Do you believe as you sit here, and I'm asking it open because I don't know what the answer is. Do you believe as you sit here that that's the orange shirt and or the gray sweatshirt and or the jeans?
If we can zoom in, I could probably pick out the pattern.
We can see this. Here we
So
go.
from here, it looks like it's a cut fabric, indicating that it most likely is the orange shirt. The jeans, you can see the belt loop through the jeans on the left side. I would say that that is Mr. O'Keefe's clothing that we picked up and bagged.
Okay, if you could unzoom that for me. One more question.
There's
You
a
see
sock.
Mr.
Where's those
O'Keefe's
socks? Black
left leg
socks.
and right leg from about the little lower than mid thigh down, correct?
Mid thigh down. I see his legs. Yes.
Okay, you see his right knee.
The interior portion of it. Yes.
Okay, do you see any scrapes or marks or cuts or abrasions on that right knee?
Not from this point. No.
Thank you. We can take that down. May I approach?
Yes.
Oh, the laser point? Which one? I think it's this one. They're both the same.
First time here in the world history, probably,
I had one more question on that photo. Sorry about that.
where the prosecution doesn't want to put on the lead investigator and the medical examiner that actually saw the deceased body. I'm going to jump to something else here. This here sent to me by AJ. Can you all see that? I don't have the ability to expand it, but look at how dirty these shoes are. These are the shoes that they're saying John O'Keefe wore. Do these look like anything, the shoes that we saw in court the last 2 days? Look at how dirty these things are. Now, these look like the trainers, but they don't look like the shoe we saw, the left shoe that we saw from 34 Fairview. Look at the one, especially the lower right photo here with the shoe on the right shoe on the right side there. Look how much dirt there is on the side heel of it. So how did these things get so cleaned up? Look at the bottoms of them, how dirty they are. Yeah, we don't see those. We don't know what happened to them. All right, let's go back to this fiasco here.
Can we display the photo one more time, Ms. Johnson? We don't need to turn the lights off. Take a look to the left. Could you zoom in on the chair? Do you see that item sitting on the chair, Sergeant?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is either mine or Michael Proctor's notepad binder.
Thank you. We can take that down. Concerning the two shirts that you earlier testified to as being sopping wet, did you bag those shirts? Well, did you bag those shirts, or did Michael Proctor bag those shirts?
Yeah, this is the first time we're seeing any part of the body, right? We're seeing some of his legs there just real briefly. We've not seen any of the arms. We've not seen any of the injuries to his head, back of his head, his eyes. None of that we've seen so far for this jury to see.
We bagged them together. If my memory is not failing me, I believe he picked it up and I held the bag open. But I could be wrong. Maybe I picked it up and he held the bag open.
That's fine. The two of you together got him in a bag.
Yes.
Was it a paper bag or a plastic bag?
It was a large paper bag, the size of like a lawn leaf bag you would get for disposing your yard waste.
Okay. Is it specifically an evidence bag, or was it something that y'all came up with on the spot?
Yeah, the shoes look brand new. They look like brand new.
The bag that was provided by Crime Scene Services.
Okay. So it's an official law enforcement type bag. What, a grocery bag?
It was not a grocery bag. It was a large bag.
Okay, understood. Did both shirts go in the same bag?
All the clothing items that were in the pile went into the same bag.
Does that include the jeans and belt and boxer shorts?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. You went from
Yeah, you could see the bottoms of the shoe. Yesterday, you could only see it as they're putting it back in. It looked almost like they're trying to hide the shoe the way they were handling it yesterday. It really looked like it was a conscious decision not to show the bottom of the shoe. And today, we didn't see the bottom of the shoe much that I recall, except maybe when it was being taken out or put in. I can't recall, but it looks definitely like this is not the same pair of shoes, or at least it got cleaned up significantly. But the left shoe is definitely not looking like the one that we saw on 34 Fairview. It supposedly came from 34 Fairview.
Good Sam, Good Samaritan, straight to Dighton, correct?
Yes.
And you are the one that put the bag in your the super cab of your pickup truck.
Yes.
And then from Dighton, you went over to Canton PD. Is that right?
Yes, we did.
And then from Canton PD, ultimately, before the night was out, you ended up back at the Norfolk DA's office, which is where you and Michael Proctor officed at the time, correct?
Yes.
When exactly, if you recall, did you lay out the clothing? You indicated it was sopping wet. You laid it out on a butcher paper. When was that?
It was during the evening hours. Once we arrived to the Canton office.
It was about 10 p.m., I'm guessing.
No, it was before that.
It was before 10?
Yes.
Yeah, just a moment.
Yes.
Sergeant, I just want to get the record as clear as possible. Did you testify at a hearing last year, at a proceeding last year here in this courtroom, that it was about 10 o'clock at night when you finally got the clothing laid out on the butcher paper?
Based on the context on the question, I might have estimated to be
Okay.
around 10. I would have to take a look at the exact language being used. And
That's fair. I'm not trying to hold you to anything. I just want to make sure we get it as clear as possible. Mayor Coach?
Yes.
A lot of y'all think these shoes are brand new.
Highlighted portion, sir.
What are they going to say? The impact of the car strike was so severe that it even untied the shoes. I mean, how did the left shoe get untied? Yeah, that's a good one. Brendan not calling Proctor equals consciousness of guilt. Look, he's got his head resting on his arm, on his hand, his other arm. Is this how you look? Like you want to help a brother in arms in a murder case, just slouched over like that, trying to get comfortable, not prepped to testify?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sergeant, does that refresh your recollection as to about the time that you ended up at the office to lay out those items on the butcher paper?
that refreshes my memory to my testimony prior.
And that was about your prior testimony. It was about 10 p.m.
When asked about what time,
Blessed assurance, you're saying, well, the jury thinks it's suspicious if the prosecution doesn't call Proctor. Yeah, they really should. And I think the way Brandon's looking at it, he just wants to have this tunnel vision, and he's just going to try to keep the jury focused and only look at certain things that he wants and tells them to focus on, and everything else he's trying to suppress, keep out. And he doesn't have the physical evidence, so he's going to try to get them to dislike Karen. That's really what it comes down to dislike Karen and to make it look like she hated on. I mean, how can anyone believe that Karen Reed hated John O'Keefe and wanted to kill him that night? It makes no sense. There's none of her behavior before and after that time frame when she left there that that reveals she had any kind of hatred for him. She was the one person that really cared about him. I would say more than anybody else in his life, other than his parents.
Time the
Oh,
items were laid out, I indicated previously it was 10 o'clock approximately.
You didn't stay there all night with those clothes.
No, I did not.
You left the clothes with Michael Proctor, did you not?
I can't testify to leaving them, quote unquote, with Michael Proctor. We laid them out together in the drying area on the butcher paper. And then at some point, I secured from the office. I don't have a memory if he left with me or if he remained.
Yeah, I really think that with this plexiglass or glass, whatever they got the clothes in, there's a reason behind that. There's a strategic reason behind that, I believe, so the jurors cannot open it up, feel it, or look at different things like the puncture marks that look like dog teeth.
To do additional tasks in the office to,
You
whatever we have to
indicated
do.
that those clothes stayed in that room starting on January 29th, 2022, so that they could dry, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Ultimately, they were bagged after they were dried, correct?
At some point they were, yes.
Who had access to that room where they were laid out on butcher paper in those intervening, those subsequent days?
Anyone that had access to the office with a proper key card authorization would have access to that
And
area.
of course, that includes you as a supervisor, correct?
It does.
It also includes Michael Proctor.
It does.
And those items were bagged on February 4th. Is that right?
I don't have a specific memory, but if you can show me a document suggesting that and supporting that statement, I will definitely look at it.
Yeah, cross-contamination, all right. Because it can mean a big, significant difference on a case. If you collect evidence from a crime scene and you're mixing it together, maybe something found on one piece of item is very critical to know how the crime unfolded, and also to help the prosecution put together exactly why it would have been there. And there's always some significance to it you can find. And so if you just throw it all together, you don't know what it collected on any other particular object. So, maybe it's important to know, well, was there dog hair on the ankles versus on the baseball cap? Those kind of things could make a difference in trying to figure out what exactly happened. I'm just using that as a wild hypothetical, but the way they just threw this together, they didn't take this case seriously from the get-go.
Okay.
Sergeant, while we're looking for this piece of paper, you remember looking at the bag that the clothing items were in, at this point, just the jeans?
Earlier today, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, I know yesterday they didn't hold them up for the jury to see, but when they put the shoe in, you could tell when they stuck it in the bag, the jury could see, and maybe not the ones furthest away from the witness box, but you could see the bottom of the shoe, and it did not look dirty, nor did any of the sides. It looked like brand new shoes.
I do remember looking at the bag, yes.
Okay, and the bag has a label on it, obviously, that's generated when items are bagged?
It has multiple labels, yes.
Okay. Did you see the label today that it indicated it was bagged on February 4th?
I didn't pay attention to it, no.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Well, we don't actually have the black soled shoe, so that's what's odd about this whole thing. And they don't have a chain of custody and evidence log, so it's just a big blender mess, hot mess.
If you could take a look at those 3 pages briefly, that's a colloquy That may refresh your recollection.
I don't know what the colloquy means. Can you?
Back and forth conversation.
I see.
Yeah, so even laces, there's discrepancies in the laces. I mean, this is like really, really bizarre that they can't handle evidence properly. That's reasonable doubt right there. Yes, there's unknown male DNA. Well, who did they cross-reference it with? Did they ask for DNA from all the males that were in the house at 34 Fairview? Why is it unknown? Unless they cross-reference with the folks that could be potential suspects. Yeah, using gloves, switch them every time for evidence you collect in solo cups. Okay, first of all, this issue about being hit by a car and your shoes can come off. If the car is only going 24 miles an hour under this hypothetical the prosecution is trying to come up with, which doesn't make any sense, it's is it really fast enough for your shoes to go flying off? I just there's no way I think that's even physically possible. A car would have to be going a lot faster, like 55, 65 on up, for something like that to happen.
May I approach?
Yes.
Sir. Did reviewing that document refresh your recollection as to the date that those items were ultimately bagged and labeled?
Yes, based on the tag on the bag, when I previously looked at it, it appears that the tag was printed on 2/4/22.
And that would be consistent with the time that the items are actually placed in the bag,
I don't know that to be true.
because you didn't place them in the bag, Trooper Proctor did, correct? I'm sorry, former Trooper Proctor did.
I don't know who placed them in the bag.
But it wasn't you.
It was not me, no.
But the case officer, Mr. Proctor, had access to that room and was taking control over those clothing items for those 6 days that they were drying on the butcher paper, correct?
That's not necessarily correct. It could have been the evidence officers bagging the evidence once it's dried and processing it. I highly doubt Trooper Proctor had access to the beast machine to print that label.
Right. I'm not asking if he printed the label. I'm asking if he bagged the item and walked it up to the evidence locker and the label was printed up there.
Again, I don't know who bagged the items.
That would be normal protocol, though, correct?
Somebody else bagging the items?
No, the case officer bagging the items. He's the one that seized it along with you. He laid them out on the butcher paper along with you. He would be the one to gather them up. I mean, the other.
I've never heard of putting evidence in plexiglass frames like that. Never heard of that. Never seen that. Has anybody else ever seen that in any kind of that follows true crime? Have you guys ever seen that in any kind of trial across America?
Evidence officer's not going to come down there and do that without the case officer knowing, correct?
Not necessarily. The evidence officer's responsibility is to handle the evidence. So I don't know who handled the evidence that day.
How would the evidence officer know to go down there? How would he know that there were clothing items being laid out to dry on butcher paper unless the case officer told him?
They would walk by it every day and see it. That's their workstation. So
Right.
they would know that, hey, this evidence is drying. There's only 4 detectives in the office at that time working on this case. We communicate daily. So they would know that, hey, it's dried. Let's bag it up.
Well, that's a lot of speculation, especially from the supervisor, literally, who just said, I have no idea who bagged it up. They weren't communicating with you, were they?
I was giving you an explanation of what could have happened.
Right. Speculation about what could have happened, right?
Well, I certainly did not bag that item.
Right. But your best estimate would be, knowing the protocols at the MSP and in your unit, would be the case officer who's controlling the items of evidence would have bagged it and submitted into the evidence locker.
I do not know who bagged it.
Well, you should know it because there should be an evidence log. There should be chain of custody. And that's why you have reasonable doubt just on the evidence handling alone.
So for 6 days, anybody who had access to that room could have handled that clothing in any way they wanted to.
That's correct.
And that includes former Trooper Michael Proctor.
That's correct.
Do you have any kind of log to document what was happening or who was handling those items of clothing during that 6-day period before it was bagged into evidence? Any kind of a log?
I don't have a document logging the.
It came out today that it was former trooper. So that's the only thing we've heard so far that I recall seeing.
Clothing laying out there. It was documented in reports and processing, I believe. But
Have you ever seen a log? I'm not talking about a report after the fact. I'm talking about a log, real-time log, indicating who may have come in and handled or touched or manipulated those clothes in that 6-day span of time before the fact.
I have never seen a log like that. No.
The fact is, we don't have a single document establishing the chain of custody for those items between January 29th and February 4th. That's correct, isn't it?
That is absolutely not correct.
Where's the log?
Yeah, that's a good point, Lisa Cobb, because your whole body would be flying. So if you're like, you get nailed by a car, let's say head on, you'd be flying up in the air and you could lose shoes that way. But just your arm being hit, and then the prosecution's theory last time that he was doing this 30-foot spiraling orbit helicopter move. Yeah, it just doesn't. It's just so insanely crazy to think that anybody would buy that.
The document logging what happened to it.
We seized the clothing. It was in our possession. It was transferred for processing.
Sergeant, I'm asking you about a log, a written piece of paper, something that looks like this. It's got writing on it that logs the item between January 29th and February 4th. That doesn't exist, does it?
We did not create a log.
Oh my God, this is so bad. This is such a huge issue. I've never seen a criminal case where they don't have an evidence log. Never.
To document the documentation.
Thank
So
you.
Oh, it's now redundant? No, it's to prove the handling of it, so it wasn't corrupted. So you know who, if there is something is run afoul on it, you can have a chain of custody of witnesses to establish what condition it was as it's being passed along through the chain.
it'd be redundant, really.
You indicated on direct examination that you personally participated in 2 searches at 34 Fairview, one on February 4th, one on February 10th. Is that right?
That is not right.
What did I get wrong?
I was also there on the 3rd. 3rd, 4th, and 10th.
Who did you go with on the 3rd?
That was Trooper DeChico, Michael Proctor, and I conducting the first excavation.
And about what time was that?
It was during the morning hours. I think earlier I said it was somewhere between 8:39, 9:30. I could have been half an hour later. I'm not exactly positive on the exact time we began the excavation.
And the other 2 searches were the next day, February 4th, and then February 10th.
The next time I was at Fairview Road and involved in a collection of evidence was on the 4th, when Canton PD documented the one piece and I collected, and then the 10th.
Okay.
Was anything recovered on February, let's take them in order, on February 3rd?
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe's hat, straw, I believe red and clear plastic taillight pieces. There was those are the items that were recovered amongst.
That's on the 3rd. Okay.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, AJ Low. I think you're the one that sent me the pictures I showed earlier a little bit ago. Sorry, plus sign at the bottom of the pic. Sorry, I did not know that. I'm not very tech savvy. So, as any of you know that follow
Okay,
me
what about
here,
the 4th?
The 4th was the red taillight piece that we displayed, I believe, that Canton PD notified me of when I was already en route there.
When you say Canton PD, who was it that notified you, if you remember?
There was, at the scene, there was Chief Berkowitz, a couple of detectives.
Sergeant Lank, does that sound right?
I do not know. I can't say yes or no. I don't recall specifically. It was raining hard, so I grabbed the item and left.
Okay. Did you write a report?
Yeah.
I'm gonna combine these.
it is sort of creepy, isn't it? Yeah, it's sort of like a some kind of sports memorabilia or something like that. Really, really odd.
Into all 3 dates together. Did you write any report? Actually, I won't do that. Let me ask him individually. Did you write any report about your search on the 3rd?
Somebody authored a report. I'm not
Did you? I'm asking about you.
I can't. There's over 100 reports. I'd have to take a look which report documents my activity that day.
Do you remember, as you sit here, authoring a report about your conduct or your activity on February 4th, the next day?
I don't have a memory of it, no.
Do you have a memory of authoring a report yourself about your conduct on February 10th, or your activity on February 10th?
I don't.
Maureen, you're asking if the defense can take the clothes out of this frame plexiglass barrier thing, and they should be able to, but this is not a normal court of law. Who knows what'll happen?
I don't have a memory of it. It could have happened. I just don't have a memory.
The reality, Sergeant, is that no report was written about any of these searches until November 4th, 2023. Correct?
That could be possible, yes.
So literally the documentation of these 3 searches about which you've testified today,
He's getting tired
the
already.
documentation did not exist until, what is that math, 17, 18 months later?
That is not true. Each bag that the evidence went into was documented, the time, location, who recovered it, where it was recovered, and brief description of the items that were recovered from the scene.
And by the way, we're going to get to that in a second, the evidence bags. A report is designed to memorialize exactly what happens, when it happens, why it happened, who was there, what time it happened, things of that nature, correct?
That is one of the purposes, or some of the purposes behind the report. Absolutely. Yes.
And the report in this case that documented these 3 searches involving you, Trooper Proctor, I think Trooper DeChico, even Canton PD officers, there was no memorialization in a report until nearly 18 months later. Is that right?
It's possible. Yeah, we write reports at different times. Yeah.
I want to ask you about this February 4th visit to the crime scene. You indicated that sometime in the morning, 8:45, 9 a.m., something like that, you responded?
On the 4th, sir?
On the 4th.
I was driving to work, so I would have to say 8:45 or so. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact timestamp, but if you know, if you have something to refresh my memory, I could tell you if that's accurate.
I'm not going to hold you to the exact time. It was in the morning on the 4th.
It was.
All right. Did you know Chief of Police Ken Berkowitz before you responded on the 4th to 34 Fairview?
Yes, I knew who he was. I had met him previously, and he was present on the 29th when the vehicle was delivered to the Sally Port.
He was actually in the Sally Port, at least at some time, when the vehicle was delivered, correct?
He was there at some point. I had a conversation with him.
Okay. Tall guy, short guy?
Chief Berkowitz was a shorter guy.
Okay. Do you know who Brian Higgins is?
I do.
What's your relationship with Brian Higgins? Or what was it? I should be more pointed to this, Sergeant. What was your relationship back in 2022, January of 2022?
Brian Higgins.
Okay, so not there yet. St. Studies show around 60 miles an hour before that happens, before her shoes come off. So really, so a shoe was taken off to try to support this notion, but they don't even know the physics and science behind shoes coming off people when they get hit by a vehicle. That's like a high-speed collision with a vehicle, not some 24-mile-an-hour deal like they're trying to concoct here.
Was a federal agent, and I crossed paths with him on a couple of investigations, strictly professional relationship, a federal agent and a state trooper.
So not a personal relationship, more of a professional relationship.
Correct.
Did you know him to have a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz?
I did not know.
Didn't Brian Higgins actually tell you and Michael Proctor in an interview that he had a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz? He called it one of his better friends.
Exactly.
Sustained, asking time.
Sure. During the course of your investigation, did you learn, although you may not have personal knowledge of it, did you learn that Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz had some sort of a personal relationship?
If you show me a report stating that, I would like to take a look. If it's written in a report authored by me or that I approved, I will take it for to be fact.
As you sit here now, you don't have a memory of that conversation with Brian Higgins?
Do I have a memory of having a conversation with him
No,
and him sharing that information with me?
That's it.
I don't have a memory of him sharing that information, but if you have a report that was authored by me or Michael Proctor or any trooper in our office that says that, I will take it as gospel and testify to it.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take up the time to look for it. We'll put our hands on that. But in the meantime, let me ask you a few other questions. You were contacted and told to respond to 34 Fairview because Chief Berkowitz had been driving by and saw something while he was driving by, correct?
On which day, sir?
February 4th.
I'm sorry.
February 4th.
Yes, he indicated that he was driving by and saw.
Yeah, they came out in the direct that the clothes that they took were riding around in the bag in the back seat of his pickup for a number of days, if I remember correctly.
piece of potential evidence.
And he was driving by in a car at speed, correct?
That's a good point.
I would take that to be factual. I mean, if he's
Okay.
driving by, I would take it to be in the car
And
at speed.
did you question Chief Berkowitz about, by the way, about how old was Chief Berkowitz when you met him out at 34 Fairview in 2022?
How old?
How old? Estimate. Was he in his 50s, 60s, 70s?
I have no idea how old Chief Berkowitz was.
He indicated to you that he was driving by and saw a small piece of red taillight from his car. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
He indicated to you that he was driving by and saw a red something from his car, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
What's he worried about here? If he's objecting, he knows that this hurts his case. The truth hurts his case. That's why he's objecting.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz after you learned this information about him driving by? Did you question Chief Berkowitz about how he could possibly see a piece of red plastic from his car?
No.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about why he was driving by 34 Fairview in the first place?
No.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about the fact that his department had been conflicted from the case, at least in part?
Yeah, if this is state jurisdiction, what's the local cop driving by even looking there? They should not be trying to assist in any way. They should only be state trooper involvement here.
Because of a, as you put it, a perceived or possible perception of a conflict of interest.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question, please?
Besides the conflict of interest, given Chris Albert, one of the Alberts, works at the police department.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about whether or not he was aware that there was a conflict of interest between Canton PD and this investigation?
No, I didn't question. No.
Did you think that was important at the time to talk to him about that conflict of interest?
No.
Because just days earlier, the Canton Police Department had in fact recused itself from interviews because of a potential conflict of interest, right?
To prevent any perceived conflict of interest, they recused themselves from being involved in interviews.
But
I wasn't pairing up with Chief Berkowitz to interview the taillight piece. I mean, I don't.
no, I didn't figure that you were going to interview the taillight piece. We all get the comment. I'm trying to get to a point.
Yeah, so that jean pocket, how did that get in a different condition from trial 1 to trial 2? That backside ripped all off, ripped open?
3 or 4 days after, 5 days after, 6 days after, Canton PD recuses itself from the investigation, these parts of the investigation, because of a perceived conflict of interest. The brother.
I'll allow is asking what I think of this jury testimony. He's so evasive, is strange. Yes, if the jury can't see that this guy is just non-credible, nothing he's saying looks like he really has a vested interest in solving this crime. It's like, hey, the whole thing is solved in a matter of hours. Just wrap it up and go home. And that's it. They just didn't treat the evidence like it was going to ever become something that you'd want to present in a court of law. I mean, it's like almost like they had just some roadkill of somebody's animal alongside the road and they had to clean it up or something. It's just such disrespect to Officer John O'Keefe as well.
Of the homeowner being a detective, the chief of that department drives by in a car and supposedly sees a piece of plastic. Right?
Question.
I'm sorry?
I object.
Sustained.
All right, let me hear that one.
In a car and supposedly sees a piece of plastic. Of the homeowner being a detective, the chief of that department drives by in a car and supposedly sees a piece of plastic. Right?
Question.
I'm sorry?
I object.
Sustained.
I guess he's making more of a statement than a question, and so he could rephrase it and get it in that way, perhaps.
Was your understanding, at least at the time, that the whole purpose of the recusal was so there would not be a perception of a conflict of interest? To avoid that?
I didn't give it much thought of the understanding why there was a recusal. I was told that they're not going to conduct interviews with us, and me being on the mission of conducting this investigation, assisting with this investigation, collecting evidence, I just knew that I needed more manpower. And the Canton police, being, having recused themselves, weren't going to be available to provide that manpower to conduct interviews.
And yet it was the chief of that very department that was standing out in front of 34 Fairview when you pulled up that morning.
With his detectives, they were at the location. They weren't standing outside. They were in their vehicles because it was raining really heavily.
Well,
Can we end at this? It's,
we can, Your
All
Honor.
right.
Sure.
All right, so Sergeant, we'll be bringing you back tomorrow.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Folks, that's it for today. Those same cautions, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent.
All right, so I'll take a few questions here. It's 11:47 my time. Okay, if you could use the red emoji for any of your questions, so I can distinguish that easily from internal chat. Ellie, I can't believe that they want people to help this. What is the chief of police of a recused police department doing there? Yeah, it's like very strange behavior. You're conflicted. So why would that be happening? They just don't care. There's no conflict they're gonna honor, apparently. Yes, Barb, you're saying the lack of chain of custody documentation makes every piece of evidence unreliable in your opinion. That's the way it should be. If you botched it this bad, wow. BCT training. So how do you bleed down his shirt? Yeah. They got to explain that. How can they explain all this evidence that they'd even do present? Who knows how much more there was out there that we don't see and we'll never see. Ash, you're asking, is Hank saying I object usual? I've only heard defense say objection and not this I object. Why is he saying I don't know. I think that's weird as well. Maggie Blaze, you're saying that Buchanan was gaslighting his way through his entire testimony. Yeah, that's one way to say it. Leslie, you're asking, did the defense have any input into encasing the clothes in plexiglass? I don't know. I doubt it. I wouldn't consent to that if I was on the defense. I don't know what they would, if they even knew about it ahead of time. Oh, a lot. You're saying, how could this chief have seen the taillight when it's pouring rain? Another just big question mark. This nothing makes sense, as I've been saying. Padlin, you're saying, let's see, do I think they had the bags open so they could switch out the shoes? Did we see both shoes first trial? I think there was both shoes of first trial. I can't recall right off the top of my head. I know from last night we showed one of the shoes, the left shoe. Yeah, Maya Rodriguez Sorensen, Esquire. The whole point of chain of custody is to show it is reliable. Without it, it's not reliable. It just isn't. Yeah, and the whole case, theoretically, at least the evidence in that manner should be not admissible. But if the defense consents to it because they think they can turn around and overall allow it to their advantage, then and they can show it's been tampered with to help bolster their arguments that this was set up. Ashley, you're asking, did Leslie have to disclose the Maryland case yesterday because of the rules in the Commonwealth about turning over your impeachment information to the Commonwealth witnesses? I'm not sure that an actual citing of a case would be considered the impeachment. Not sure about their rules there, but I'm glad they found that case. It's a recent case as well, so if there's any deadline, that case coming out, I think after the discovery deadline would exempt them from that. GR Cuber, how's the questioning of Proctor different if the defense calls him? Well, it's different in the sense that, if you look at Hank Brennan, he leads so much when he's has witnesses on direct. He's doing like a lot of the talking for them. He's really being very particular on the kind of questions he asks, and he repeats a lot of the stuff that they say, and he sets up a lot of the details in his question. And I just don't like that as a trial attorney. I think attorneys that do that, it's like they like to hear themselves talk too much. For me, I always said, like, the prosecutor job is pretty easy. All you have to do is get up, bring a witness up there, get them sworn in, have them introduce themselves to the jury, and then establish what their you could just ask them something like, how did you become relevant to this case, and just take it from there, and then just say, what happened next, what happened next, what happened next. And that pretty much is all you need to do as a prosecutor. Defense counsel work is so much tougher because you have to know all these angles and lines of attack, and you have to expose the witness and any of their lies. So that's a lot tougher job to do. You need to have a good skill set doing that. Sweet Ann, do I think it was planned they would kill John because they may have known something they didn't want out? Well, I'm just going to tell you what I think the defense will be arguing, if they're allowed to argue it, if they're not hamstrung by this judge. I think they're going to say that if you look at what was happening there at the waterfall, and you look at the text from Higgins, there's something about to go down. The way Jen was trying to have Karen separated from him, was something going to happen there at the waterfall bar and grill. But I don't think anybody really thinks that this was a planned out murder by anybody in particular. So is it possible that John may have had some kind of intel on some illegal activity of somebody that wanted to make sure that it didn't get reported or found out or something? That's possible. So I'm not going to speculate who's behind the killing. All I'm going to say is the defense shouldn't worry about pointing any particular finger at this person or that person, this guy in the house versus that guy in the house. But they need to, I think, having the folks in the house be seen. If the jury sees Higgins, they see especially Brian Albert, and the kind of look that they have, the persona that they have, the way they come across. I think the jury would really think that, yeah, this is there's something not right about this. Something's not adding up. These people acting that strange. This guy looks like he'd be the first guy out of the house if there's some kind of a fracas going out in the yard. Brian Albert. He'd be out there with his pistol drawn. Yeah, he was doing what Gallagher was doing, like on cross-exam questions, is totally outrageous. Of course, I didn't search Brian Albert's house. Of course, I didn't use an evidence log. I mean, these guys are bold and brazen. They don't care. One of the things we've not heard come out is, citing any kind of training standards and operational standards of how you process a crime scene that they're taught in the academy there in Massachusetts. None of that's come out by the defense so far. I thought they would be doing that at some point, especially since they don't have Easter available as an expert. BCT training. Yeah, the snow on the bottom of the shoe, it's white, so it's not to appear to be a shadow. That could be a good point as well. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. The Commonwealth hired an expert to replace Trooper Paul. So then defense, maybe they ought to consider having Trooper Paul come on as an easily impeachable expert to just to show how the theory of the prosecution keeps changing. If it keeps changing, then guess what? They're just guessing. They're just guessing. They don't know what's going on. And they put Karen through a trial with an expert that just had a story that just defied physics. Piece through strengths. How can they charge Karen when they purposely destroyed the crime scene? Yeah, they're not admitting to any of that. And this whole issue about the shoe there in the snow and what the bottom color of the shoe is. And it does have, like I say, the wraparound black portion of it that leads me to believe it is a different shoe. We don't have to know or point the finger at who actually would have been a part of this. All we have to do, if you're on the defense, if you're doing a defense on a case like this, is just show that these are doubts. They're reasonable doubts, more than reasonable doubts. These are huge issues of concern that nobody can trust the evidence collected. And if you can't trust the evidence collected, it makes it a lot harder to be able to say that Karen's behind this. One reasonable doubt alone is all it can take and should take to get an acquittal. All right, I got time for one last question. Thanks to you all for supporting justice for Karen Reed. Helen, you're asking, is there any hope for this judge's obvious collusion being brought to account by the FBI? I don't have any insider knowledge or any ideas. I don't know that just having connections to people that makes you want to help them on their case is something that the FBI is going to be able to prove anything on or find any details out. So, yeah, Karen's looking like she's tired and stressed. I mean, and we got weeks to go. Yeah, the defense has no burden whatsoever, but they do want to help expose the flaws and the doubts of this case. So they've done that every single day. It's another defense win this day. This witness, this sergeant, is absolutely terrible as a witness and can't be trusted and relied upon to help establish guilt for Karen Reed. So anyway, with that, you all have a good night, and I intend to be back sometime tomorrow night and cover what happened this Friday the 9th of May. So See you then, hopefully. Good night.